Hello, 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 and thank you for checking out The Luttrell Show about building bars, businesses, and brands. So it's about to be a new year, and you've gained some more insight, more experience, and hopefully improved your skills. What do you plan on doing with all this knowledge? Where does it go from here? Before I go into why you should consider making it official and going into business for yourself, let me tell you my story. Maybe some of it will sound familiar. When I was a kid, my mom told me that I would be a great bartender or a great shrink. I was not that into school, but I was a huge fan of learning. This led to me dropping out of San Diego State after almost 2 years of pushing a rock uphill on academic probation. From there, I worked odd jobs and generally kept things pretty simple. I literally lived in a car, bumming around San Diego. I moved to LA for a couple years, working in promotions for Red Bull and K-Big and Coast, the radio stations there. And then I got a call to join a friend's band on tour as the merch guy. I later became the tour manager, and 2.5 years later, I'd been to almost every state in the United States and every little podunk town in between. This was all before Google Maps, and Wi-Fi was pretty rare. But even then, I was figuring out how to connect my cell phone and a laptop to occasionally get things done. That eventually ended, and I didn't have a lot of prospects, and I had very little money saved. I was back in San Diego, and I didn't know what was next. I was around 22 years old, and I got a job as a busser at a little East County restaurant, a little IPC, and I was living with my parents. After living in a car for 2.5 years with some teenagers, this wasn't very glamorous. I knew I had to start somewhere, but it was always my goal and intention to be a bartender there. So after a while of bussing tables and washing dishes, I eventually became a server, waiting in line to get behind the bar. That day would never come, so I took a job as a day bartender at a complete dive, but I got a lot of valuable experience there too. I even worked through some of the cocktails in the Mr. Boston Guide, which was the only book that the bar had. I remember making some truly unforgivable drinks and accepting money for them. Most of the time, the folks there slapped down a $20 bill, drank Bud Heavies until there was only a couple quarters left on the bar, and that would be my tip. Later, I would move to New York, and that was supposed to be temporary, only for 3 months to record an album. I needed a job because I went there with $175 and a drum set. So I started walking dogs around Lower Manhattan, and that was really great because I got a really great feel for the city. So for months and months and months, I slept on couches. I moved to a couch with a dog walker friend, and that's when I got my first bar gig in the city. I was at this Thai restaurant, which I think is still there, on University by NYU. So my job was the head bartender, I guess, and I was making $50 a week plus tips to manage the bar. Also, some unforgivable drinks went over that bar. So I had no idea what I was doing. So that job led me to hearing about an opportunity at a music venue in Times Square, and I remember representing my experience very creatively to get into that door. But that's when I got really fast behind the bar, because that's the only way that you keep a job like that is you just have to be crushing fast. I was later fired from that job because the management was crazy, and I was a bit too green to know what was going on. So again, I was out of a job. That led to a fondue restaurant where I met more people like me. The fondue bar led me to a scene that was happening on Elizabeth Street called the Randolph, which is where I really got my start. In the beginning, it was only open 3 days a week, and the bar didn't open until 9-ish. It was a party. One of the DJs there ended up starting a little band that you may have heard of called the Chainsmokers. That iteration of that bar was pretty short-lived because we were pissing off the neighbors, and the owners made a decision that would forever change the trajectory of my career. They partnered with the late, great Mr. Sasha Petrasky to train us and show us what a proper drink tastes like and how that's made. This experience was absolutely pivotal for me, and I still remember the feeling of knowing I was in the presence of a master. The training was ongoing because down the street was one of the cornerstones of the craft cocktail movement, Milk and Honey. We were open late, so their bartenders would come by and ask me for cocktails I'd never heard of. This was one of the times that I gained the most knowledge in the shortest amount of time. I mean, they were asking me for like View Carrés and Queen's Park Swizzles and, Ramos Fizzes, and I didn't know what these drinks were. That's when I got a lot more in my repertoire. From there, I was given the absolute opportunity of a lifetime to work at Death & Company, where I stayed for 2.5 years. This was another massively pivotal time for me. The entire complexion of how cocktails were built was a completely new structure, and everything was new to me. I felt like I was just starting out my first job when I started there. I trained for a good 6 weeks before I ever had a shift by myself. That's also incidentally where I got pretty fast because there weren't always two bartenders on Sundays. And so I would open the bar by myself with a server. And, sometimes we would get 55 people in at the same time. And so you just had to do it. It was also during this time that I started to get more involved with the community. And around then, I was elected to be the second president of the New York chapter of the USBG. So things were starting to pick up. I got a Star Chef's Rising Star Award. I was most influential 40 under 40 for Wine Enthusiast magazine. I was getting a lot of sunshine. And in retrospect, I was actually pretty cocky about it. With this momentum, I started my first business as Critical Mass Events LLC in the fall of 2010. I wanted to start an LLC because I needed a way to limit the liability on me individually. And I just really enjoyed making stuff. So why not make a business? So it's important to note that Contemporary Cocktails was a huge inspiration for me. I didn't know that an events cocktail company was a thing until I saw what they were doing at events like the Grand Marnier Mixology Summit and my first Tales of the Cocktail in 2009. At this point, I had no formal business training. I had no idea what I was doing. I have no idea how anything got done before the internet. I made the decision and I went to bizfilings.com and just got my LLC. From there, I got an EIN and a business bank account. The whole thing costed around $350 if I remember correctly. I didn't have a website until years after I started the company. And it wasn't until years later that I was actually happy with my branding. I didn't even care about branding. I was busy. I had a ton of inbound business because I was a known quantity and word got around that I could make your event happen if you called me. I didn't even know how to use Excel when I started my business. But this is obviously the easiest and fastest way to scale batches. I'm a Google Drive person now, but back then it was all Excel. So I learned how to use lots of different kinds of tools, and I started to accumulate equipment to be able to service larger and larger events. I bought a truck, and the number one service I was beginning to provide was taking things off of people's plates. So marketing directors, brand owners, PR companies, event producers, caterers. My number one product was peace of mind. The reason I'm telling you all this is because I think you should consider using your skills to start a business if that's what you want to do. It's not the only path to whatever it is that you want to do. I mean, most people are perfectly happy working a job and growing within somebody else's company, and that's fine. That's fine. But some of us have been fired from multiple jobs because of insubordination. We think we can do it better. That's me. So what I'm saying is you don't even need to know what your business does just yet. I didn't. I just figured it out. You don't even have to quit your job. I would say just make a business card and spread the word that you're available to do stuff outside of your bar and restaurant. That's it. If that doesn't work, then you can use the numerous resources on the internet to find out how to promote your business to the people that actually make those decisions. And I'll get more into that stuff in later podcasts. But yeah, step one, I would say, is just let people know that you're available. The card itself doesn't have to be fancy. I mean, honestly, text only is fine. But if you want to make a logo for yourself, I would say don't pay for it. Make it with something like Canva is a product that I use all the time, canva.com, C-A-N-V-A. But it doesn't have to be fancy. Just focus on your product. If you are delivering solutions for people, people will call you. If you are taking things off their plate, they will call you. 9 years of hills and valleys later, I'm able to support my family and myself working as an independent contractor / nano agency. And I haven't had to fire myself yet. So I hope you've enjoyed this story and I hope you can find some motivation from it. I think it's an important step is to just make it official and just start your business, do it. It doesn't really cost a lot, but you have the feeling of building something and that you are planted a seed that can grow. And I just kept grinding through the bad days. And that's why I still have a business. But oftentimes people's first, second, third businesses don't succeed. So don't beat yourself up. Just keep trying. That being said, I wanted to keep these shows super short and dense. If you have any thoughts, questions, or ideas, please reach out to me at Jason Luttrell on Twitter and Instagram, or search for Jason Luttrell on Facebook and LinkedIn. If you got anything out of our time together, you can thank me by simply sharing this with another person. If you loved the show, please leave a review on iTunes and leave a comment. That's how people know I'm not completely full of shit.